Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Daily Compliance News. The Daily Compliance News is an offering of the Compliance Podcast Network. November 25, 2019, another FCPA guilty verdict edition. First up, from The Independent. Unfortunately, in Colombia, anti-corruption protests have turned violent as 250,000 people gathered in Bogota to demonstrate against the government's graft and rights abuses. 3 police officers were killed in a bomb blast as these people gathered for these protests. 10 officers were also injured in another explosion. No one has claimed responsibility, but the grievances included the rumored economic reforms the president denied and anger at the demonstrators for a lack of action to stop the corruption in the country. Next up, what is risk and what is investment risk? Well, Carlyle Group is finding out that right now as they've been dragged into a really interesting music royalty / ownership fight with Taylor Swift. The Carlyle Group funded the purchase of a company which owned her music rights. The person who bought the company was called Scooter Braun. And Scooter Braun is the manager for Kanye West, who is the arch enemy of Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift not only has attacked Scooter Braun because Scooter Braun basically tried to keep her from playing her hits at the American Music Awards because, of course, his company owns them. But because Carlyle Group funded the purchase or back them, she asked her followers to go after the Carlyle Group. On top of that, Elizabeth Warren and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have used it as evidence of their continuing attack on private equity. So how do you really rate the risk of your portfolio or your investments with what appeared to be a relatively straightforward purchase of a music company which held a very valuable set of back catalog rights, which has exploded on the Carlyle Group? So it really goes to show how risk can change, how risk can morph, and how social media amplifies the discussion going on, good, bad, or ugly. So a very potent lesson to be learned. Next up, Samsung Industries has agreed to pay $75 million in penalties for FCPA violations. The South Korean based engineering company has entered into a deferred prosecution agreement in connection with the criminal information, and the penalty of just over $75 million is for payments made to for payments of bribes to Petrobras to obtain contracts. Part of the monies paid to the United States, at least half, will go to the Brazilian government in a sharing arrangement. So once again, showing the one pie concept is alive and well, but a very interesting DPA with Samsung companies, a long-standing FCPA investigation and enforcement action. And finally, we had another FCPA case go to trial and go to jury verdict. And the jury verdict came down on Friday for a former president of a Maryland transportation company. Mark Lambert was found guilty of participating in a scheme to bribe the unit of a Russian nuclear energy company. That nuclear energy company, 10X, is a state-owned enterprise of the Russian government, supplying uranium literally throughout the world. The former executive was acquitted on some other charges, and his lawyer bemoaned the fact that the case went to the trial the week before Thanksgiving, but that's really every trial lawyer has to be cognizant of that and complain about the jury coming back with a guilty verdict so they could get out for the Thanksgiving holidays. It's really, I think, a poor commentary on a trial that could have been ended much quicker. It was a 3-week trial. All of the other parties in this case had pled guilty, so there was a wealth of evidence in the public domain that the prosecution was able to draw upon, including the payments, how they were done, certain code words that were used to facilitate bribes. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio.